There's a lot of differences and similarities between New Zealand and Canada, and after traveling throughout the country for the better part of 9 months, you can't help but constantly compare the two. A lot of people ask every time we're out and about, it's like, oh, okay, that's how you do it here. That's a little bit different. I quite like it. So today we're gonna have a little yarn about the little things that you notice on a day-to-day basis, especially if you're traveling between the two countries. And apparently having a little yarn means you're gonna have a little chat about it. So here we go, Canada versus New Zealand. Let's compare the two. Obviously the landscapes are huge draws to people that want to travel to both Canada and New Zealand because they're just straight up epic. Semi-similar, the most common thing to say is that New Zealand is just so much more compact than Canada. It's, you know, Canada's just so wide and it probably has, I think I read something that it has the most coastline out of any other country in the world, but so much of it is in the Arctic North that like you hardly know how many people are really up there. Someone commented the other day saying you can go skiing in the morning, water skiing in the afternoon, and surfing in the evening. Where I don't think there's anywhere in Canada you could do that. Maybe on Vancouver Island. That just goes to show how compact their diverse landscape is here. If we want to talk about whose is bigger in terms of mountains, Canada has more taller mountains for sure. Quite a few above 5,000 meters in height, although the really tall mountains in Canada are pretty far northwest in the Yukon. I've personally never been up there. I don't know how many people come to Canada and go and see those. But if we compare the Canadian Rockies, which is arguably like the most touristy area in Canada, to New Zealand's Southern Alps, you're really not that far off. You know, as a Canadian, I think one of the biggest appeals to New Zealand is the amount of really beautiful beaches that are here. I feel like I can't really compare them to anything back home. I mean, I lived in Vancouver for a little while. We've had trips out to Vancouver Island. Tofino Beach is beautiful, doesn't really have the same vibe as a lot of these beaches do. It's like, it's just so much more tropical. You can see so many more beaches in New Zealand because majority of them are accessible. I'm really glad we settled in Nelson because we are right across the street from a beach, and back home in Canada, we're just really not gonna get that. Yes, there's tons of lakes and there's beaches that you can go and see, but you just don't get this really cool landscape around majority of them. I think some of the nicest parts of interior BC, like the Okanagan, Shuswap, Lake Kalamalka and Vernon, Osoyoos, those would be the most comparable to here. I mean, 90 Mile Beach, the sand dunes up north, just the amount of like rocky and rugged coastline that you'll probably find in Eastern Canada. Haven't been there yet. So apparent here. It's tough to beat. Points definitely to New Zealand for their beaches. Now, speaking of landscapes, national parks is a huge one, and they're free in New Zealand. Canada, you do have to pay. There's a day pass. It can be kind of steep. I think it's like $20 for a car per day. So free is nice, but I honestly don't mind paying for a national parks pass. I think it's like $80 a car or $140 for like a big family. A lot of money goes into national parks, so I really don't mind paying. But if you are traveling to Canada for a week or two, so to drop $80 on a parks pass, you know, that's an added expense for sure. It is really tough to compare because Banff, Jasper National Park are kind of two areas that I grew up beside, and they're pretty mind-blowing. Lake Louise, Moraine Lake, just even the towns of Banff and Jasper are just fun to go out and explore. But doing the Hooker Valley Track to Mount Cook, that's pretty incredible. Milford Sound and Doubtful Sound was a landscape that I've never really seen before, and the photos and videos just do not do it justice. That was an unbelievable wow moment for us. It's really hard to compare the two because they're both amazing. One thing I will say about New Zealand though is that whether you're in a national park or not, this country has public washrooms down pat. It's like they knew that everyone would be traveling around everywhere. You could be driving to this really rural town in the middle of nowhere and they'll just have a really beautiful public space with like just supreme washrooms. You're like, where are we? I like that a lot. Yeah, Canada has public washrooms, definitely some in the national parks, especially at the beginning of trailheads for hikes, but they're just not really all over the place like they are here. I wouldn't really want to touch the ones in the cities either. They can be pretty rough. I have no idea where I'm going. There doesn't seem to be any payoff to this little trail, so I'm just gonna turn around. In terms of agriculture, dairy is like really popular here. They call convenience stores dairies down here. I was a little confused by that at the start. It's like, oh yeah, you can pick up a bus pass at the dairy. I was like, what? What do you mean the dairy? Are we in the 1950s right now? I think because of the rugged landscape, there's a lot more livestock. Crazy amounts of sheep. Apparently at one time during the 80s, there was like a ratio of, you know, over 20 to 1 sheep per person. Now it's down to, I think, 5 to 1. Lots of sheep. Lots of beef cattle, lots of dairy cows. Don't think you find a whole lot of sheep anywhere in Canada, but it's definitely a lot of cows, especially if you're ripping down Highway 1. You're used to seeing a lot canola fields, a lot of grain fields, wheat. And if you're here while they're transporting sheep, try not to get stuck behind one of those vehicles. Whew, does not smell good. That was like a little adventure to nowhere. Hopefully that's not an underlying theme of this video. Sometimes I wish I could take the Kiwi climate home with me. Other times I don't at all. It's far more comparable to British Columbia, that's for sure. I think in the summer months, Canada can actually be semi-comparable minus the harsh UV rays of sunlight. You know, Calgary, inner BC can be very dry, and if you get out towards, you know, the Great Lakes like Toronto and Ottawa, and then the East Coast, like it can be very hot and humid, where you can, I think, experience a lot of that. But the UV rays in New Zealand, oh my God, it's nothing I've ever felt before. We'll be sitting outside on our patio at like 7 p.m. in the spring. It's like November 25th or something. I'll just be like, yeah, can't do it. I gotta go inside wearing shorts and sunscreen. It's like, yeah, I can't. I've gotta go either jump in the water or just sit inside in front of a fan. It's hot for sure. I'll take the winters here, obviously, over any winter in Canada, but that's really not saying a whole lot because, yeah, Canada's just really known to have harsh winters. The thing that gets me is that you can actually like do so much stuff outside here. Something I was thinking about the other day, imagine moving. Like for me, I've always tried to move or sign a lease or find a place to live between April and October so you're not moving in like really garbage minus 30 degree snowy weather, because that just sucks. Imagine just not having to even have that thought process cross your mind. And then there's so many other things that are like that. Do you even have to winterize your camper here? Probably not. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool. And if it's not a Tim Hortons, then it's a McDonald's, which is a Macca's here. I don't know if they're gonna let me back in the country if I say this, but it's really not that great. If you're driving, like, you can grab a quick sandwich, pack of Timbits, a double coffee to go. It is quick, it's convenient, it's whatever. Sometimes it's just shitty, but you gotta do it. Then there's like gas station coffee, which is just, you know, grab your own cup, sit there, press a button, wait, you put your own cream and sugar in it. It's fine if you just really want a coffee and just to keep going, but it's not great. It's not even good, really. After being in New Zealand for about a week, I just kind of went, wow, okay, this is different, but it's way better. The culture is very much based around quality over convenience. You're more likely to stop at a cafe, a bakery, even a gas station. Just park, get out of your car, and go and get a really good cup of coffee. Every single place that you walk into has a very solid machine. There's fresh beans on the go. I don't want to pump the country's tires too much right here, but I don't think I've had a bad cup of coffee here. And that includes going to the petrol station. Like, the person that charges you for your gasoline to fill up your tank can also make you one hell of a cup of coffee. I hope I don't get too used to that. Food's an interesting one because obviously, you know, poutine is a really big deal in Canada. It's on a lot of restaurant menus. We've seen it once here, so definitely don't have poutine. I'm not the biggest poutine fan, but it's still something that you notice. The food's not very different. A lot more takeaway spots, which is, again, probably another reason, you know, it's just so well built for travelers. So many takeaway spots where you can grab some fish and chips for like 10, 12 bucks. You're good to go. I prefer the food back home in Canada because that's what I grew up on. You know, I miss certain pizza places, certain restaurants. Yeah, absolutely. But it has not been an issue at all finding a good meal here. One thing that New Zealand has to offer that I've talked about probably in so many videos, you're probably getting sick of it at this point, is the meat pies. They're just, oh man. Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do when we go back to Canada with that. I'm gonna have to learn how to bake meat pies, I guess. All right, let's finish this video off with some of my favorite differences in the terminology that you hear on a day-to-day basis. I've started to make a list in my phone. I've had it on the go for like the last 3 or 4 months. This is like my favorite part. A truck, like a pickup truck, they call those pickup trucks a ute here, and that's for a utility vehicle. A van would also be a utility vehicle, but that's not called a ute, that's just called a van. Canada, we would call this a cooler, but in New Zealand, it's called a chili bin. That's way better. I want to say that more than cooler now. If you wanted to go meet someone and just have a quick chat over a cup of coffee, we just say go out for coffee. Here it's go out for a cuppa. Go for a cuppa. Canada, you're feeling really stressed. You have all of these things to do. We would say under the gun. Like there's someone with a gun there, I guess. But here they say under the pump. Like there's a pump above you. This one gets me a lot, actually. People like to refer to dinner or supper as tea. Hey, what are your plans for tea? I'm like, oh, I don't really drink tea in the afternoon. It's like, oh, well, I mean dinner. And I'm like, why didn't you just say that then? Why would you call it tea? That just refers to drinking a tea. I don't think I'll ever understand that one. We say sandals, they say jandals. We say bathing suit, swimsuit, swim trunks. They say togs. In Canada, in a work atmosphere, to be nice, you know, you'd be like, hey, if there's anything else you need, please let me know. I'd be happy to help. Down here in New Zealand, it's like, please sing out if you need anything. Sing out. I'm not doing it properly with the accent, but okay, that's pretty much all I got. Thank you so much for watching this Canada versus New Zealand comparison video. Both countries are absolutely awesome. They do have their faults. No place is perfect. These are two awesome places to explore and live in. And I just had a fun time making this video with you. I sure sweat a lot, so I'm gonna go have a shower. We'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.